Greetings. This is Attorney General BArr. Now, Attorney General BArr just made a statement saying that there's no proof of no voter fraud or election fraud. Because there's two different things, both of them. But here's him 3 months back outlining this process of fraud. Listen to him. So this means right now he's flipped and he got to eat his words, because right here he tells you that it's a problem with mail-in voting. And now we at the highest level of mail-in voting ever. He says there's no fraud. But just listen to him now. Watch him contradict himself.
This is a sort of cheap talk to get around the fundamental problem, which is the bipartisan commission chaired by Jimmy Carter and James Baker said back in 2009 that mail-in voting is fraught with the risk of fraud and coercion.
But since then,
and until this
proved it.
Let me talk.
Yeah, please.
And since that time, there have been in the newspapers, in networks, academic studies saying it is open to fraud and coercion. The only time the narrative changed is after this administration came in. But elections that have been held with mail have found substantial fraud and coercion. For example, we indicted someone in Texas, 1,700 ballots collected from people who could vote. He made them out and voted for the person he wanted to. Okay? Because that kind of thing happens with mail-in ballots, and everyone knows
But there are individual cases, but as far as widespread fraud, we haven't seen that since...
Well, we haven't had the kind of widespread use of mail-in ballots that's being proposed. We've had absentee ballots from people who request them from a specific address. Now...
So he basically just said that being that these ballots was proposed, that it can be done on a high level with that amount of ballots. So now, I don't know the exact number on the ballots, but we got millions and millions and millions of more absentee ballots and mail-in ballots because of coronavirus. So that means, according to Attorney General BArr, that the election is open to fraud.
What we're talking about is mailing them to everyone on the voter list when everyone knows those voter lists are inaccurate. People who should get them don't get them, which is what has been one of the major complaints in states that have tried this in municipal elections. And people who get them are not the right people. They're people who have replaced the previous occupant, and they can make them out. And sometimes multiple ballots come to the same address with a whole several generations of occupants. Do you think that's a way to run a vote?
Well, the only thing I'm saying is that so far we haven't seen widespread fraud. But
He said, do you think there's any way to run a vote? Listen to this.
There are several states that we haven't seen widespread fraud. But
so far we haven't tried it.
Well,
and the point is
that a lot of us, there are several states that only have mail-in voting, including a Republican.
Well, this is playing with fire. This is playing with fire. We're a very closely divided country here. And if people have to have confidence in the results of the election and the legitimacy of the government, and people trying to change the rules to this methodology, which as a matter of logic is very open to fraud and coercion, is reckless and dangerous. And people are playing with fire.
Well, I will point out there are 5 states that only have mail-in voting, including Utah and Colorado, Washington State, Oregon, Hawaii, and they've reported over the years they've had virtually no problems. But who's trying to change the rules right now?
I would say the people who want to go to mass mail-in ballots.
But you understand why. There is a coronavirus pandemic, right. And there are a lot of people, potentially, if they waited long lines when they go to the polls, they could get sick, especially older people or people with underlying...
Now, that's showing you that the framers of this fraud was literally putting this together, because he's telling you this is why they needed the coronavirus to last longer, and they already knew that it was flu season, and they can't say the coronavirus is flu, working with the crooked doctors. So all of this is designed for mail-in ballot fraud, all this fake coronavirus death rate when they're using the same rate that they was using for the flu for the past couple of years, and the same amount of people dying from the flu. So this proves that coronavirus is a political weapon. And it ain't even real. It's an illusion. Now let's finish this off.
Conditions. As a result, a lot of people want to change the rules so they don't have to go wait in long lines. Well, they don't have to touch all the.
And the appropriate way to deal with that is, number one, arrangements at the polls that protect people, which can be done. And number two, people who have pre-existing conditions and are particularly vulnerable can get an absentee ballot. I have no problem with people. I voted by absentee ballot, not by mail. I actually went to the office to cast my vote, but absentee ballots are fine.
All right, let's move on and talk a little bit about